All the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light of a single candle. Saint Francis through his words and deeds extinguished the light in the world. Today I am going to represent the life of a great saint through a story. Francis is one of the most popular saints and our patron saint also. He was born in Assisi in 1182. His father, Peter Bernardin, a rich textile merchant. His mother, Pica, who baptized him John, but his father called him Francis. Francis felt attracted to a knight's career. While he was preparing, a vision turned him away from the expedition and sent him back to Assisi. One day, while he was riding his horse, he saw a leper sitting by the road. People used to avoid lepers as they were dirty, stinking, and it was a contagious disease. But Francis went and gave him some money, embraced him like an old friend. On 12th April 1206, while praying in the church of Saint Damiano, thrice he heard a voice from the crucifix urging him, "Go, Francis, restore my house which is falling into ruins." In 1221, founded a third Franciscan order of lay men and women. In 1223, Francis and his brethren celebrated Christmas in a mountain cave at Greccio. There they brought an ox, a donkey, and spread some hay under the temporary little altar. Thus Francis made the first ever Christmas crib. During the midnight mass, he and the little assembly saw baby Jesus smiling on the hay. Today, the crib is so much loved all over the world as part of Christmas celebrations every year. On 14 September 1224, Feast of the Exaltation of the Cross, Francis received in his body the stigmata, the 5 sacred wounds of the Lord. Saint Francis was also an apostle of peace and fraternal charity. His universal love extended not only to all human beings but to all creation, to sister birds, brother wolf, brother sun, and even sister death. His precious greeting words are peace and good.
All of us have heard the story of the 3 shepherd children of Fatima, Portugal, whom Mother Mary appeared several times. The 3 children were Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta. On 13th May 2000, in the Basilica of Our Lady of the Rosary of Fatima, Portugal, Pope John Paul II beatified both the siblings, Francisco and Jacinta. And on May 13, 2017, in the same Basilica of Our Lady of the Rosary in Fatima, Portugal, Pope Francis canonized them both. Saint Jacinta was born on 11th March 1910 and died on February 20th, 1920 at the age of 9, the youngest of the 3 visionaries. She was known as a joyful and well-liked child. Even before the apparition at Fatima took place, Jacinta was known for her deep love for the Lord. On May 13th, when Jacinta was just 7 years old, Our Lady appeared to these 3 children for the first time. These apparitions continue between May 1917 and October 1917. At Fatima, Our Lady asked the children to pray the Rosary every day for peace in the world, for the war to end, and to make sacrifices for the conversion of sinners. Jacinta was drawn to making sacrifices for sinners. This was particularly evident when Jacinta and her brother contracted influenza in 1920. While sick on bed, Our Lady came to visit them again. On February 20th, at the age of 9, Jacinta died. She is the youngest non-martyr ever to become a saint, and it is not because Mother Mary appeared to her, it's because even as a little girl, she knew how to choose good and reject evil, how to love Jesus and offer Him all her sufferings. It's because of her heroic virtue which every child is capable of. I'm proud today to have been named Jacinta by my parents and my brother, priest Paul Francis, and my sister, nun Lucy Matilda. All three of us have been called for.
Friends, today I want to speak about my favorite saint, Saint Francis of Assisi. He was famous for his love for the creation, poverty and humility before God. Thousands were drawn to his life of sincerity, peace and joy. Francis was never a holy man, nor he inclined to be one. He was the son of a rich man in business, having money to spend and enjoy with the friends. Yet he had a great desire to become a great in the society, and that time only one way to be great was to become a knight and go for crusades. Hence, he joined the army and moved towards Apulia in the year 1204. In the meantime, he saw one of them dressed poorly, and immediately he removes his overcoat and gives to him. On the first night, he had a vision of lovely palace filled with the royal equipments and swords, etc. He gets the inspiration that this palace will be his and loudly proclaims that one day he will be a great prince. The very second night, in his Spoleto, he hears a voice, Francis, who can bestow more fortunes on you, the master or servant? He replies, the master. Which the voice says, then why are you forsaking the master's voice? He went back to Assisi and changes his worldly weapons with spiritual and worldly knighthood to divine. He returns to Assisi. His father persecuted him. People shouted at him, but he determined to follow the voice. He started to serve the poor and downtrodden. He finds joy being with them. To gain more experience, he makes pilgrimage to Rome. At St. Peter's Gate, he saw many lepers and he exchanges his clothes with one of the beggars and sits among them for begging. Then he understood their humiliation. The sight of the lepers nauseated him, and their humble condition disgusted him. He wanted to run away, but the inner voice rebuked him. How can you be the knight of Christ if you cannot? He dismounted the horse, went to the leper, put arms on his hand and kissed him. The leper in turn pressed his lips on the hands of the benefactor. He says, what was bitter now turns sweet. Thank you.
My favorite saint is Saint Bonaventure. I like Saint Bonaventure very much because I learnt about Francis through his works. Saint Bonaventure was born in central Italy. After his studies, he taught theology at the University of Paris. Later in 1242, he entered the Franciscan order and moved up to the ranks to become Minister General in 1257. He steered the Franciscans on a moderate and intellectual course that made them most prominent order in the Catholic Church until the coming of the Jesuits. He thought of Christ as the one true master who offers humans knowledge that begins in faith, is developed through rational understanding, and is perfected by mystical union with God. He was a man of prayer and a good administrator. So he structured the order based on the vision and insights of St. Francis. He was Franciscan at heart and a mystical writer. His teaching and writings are very appealing. In 1260, he was commissioned by the General Chapter of Narbonne to write a biographical legend of St. Francis of Assisi. Thus, he wrote Major Life of Francis, known as Legenda Major. In this document, St. Bonaventure has divided the various scenes from St. Francis' life into 3 stages. They are purgation, illumination, and perfection. In the first stage of his life, Francis undergoes purgation, that is personal conversion. In the second stage, he understands God's plan and thus he is illumined. In the third stage, he brings to perfection God's plan in his life. St. Bonaventure is known as Seraphic Doctor because of his burning love for God and his great zeal to do God's work. When he ended his service as Minister General, Pope Gregory X made him a cardinal and appointed him Bishop of Albano. But within a year, while participating in the Second Council of Leon, he died suddenly on July 15, 1274. He was formally canonized in 1484 by the Franciscan Pope Sixtus IV. St. Bonaventure says, since happiness is nothing else than the enjoyment of supreme good, and the supreme good is above us, no one can enjoy happiness unless he rises above himself. St. Bonaventure so united holiness and theological knowledge, and he rose to the heights of mysticism while remaining a very active preacher and teacher. If we know him and read his works, we can meet a true Franciscan and a gentleman.